Imagine this. You're piloting a multi-million-dollar drone on a mission where everything is on the line. All systems look green. But what you don't know is that someone has hijacked the sky itself. They're feeding your drone a false reality and guiding it step by step right into their hands. Now, this isn't some spy movie plot. This is the very real, very dangerous world of GPS spoofing, and it's a threat that's growing bigger every single day.
This event right here was a massive wake-up call for everyone. Back in 2011, Iran made this incredible claim. They said they didn't shoot down a top-secret U.S. stealth drone. They said they landed it. And they did it by tricking its GPS, making the drone think it was coming home to its base, when in reality, it was landing perfectly at an Iranian airfield. The thing you have to understand is this. It wasn't a jam. It wasn't a glitch. It was a planned, sophisticated attack that completely changed the game.
So how in the world is that even possible? I mean, think about it. You've got a signal traveling thousands of miles from a satellite whipping around the Earth, and someone on the ground can just grab it and replace it with a fake one? It sounds like science fiction. Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down in this explainer. But here's the thing. That drone incident wasn't some one-off event. It was just the most famous example. This is a threat that has been quietly evolving for years, and it's moved way beyond just military targets. It's now aimed at the very tech we use every day. This timeline of deception is, well, it's pretty startling. It starts in 2011 with that military drone. Then, just 2 years later, researchers take over an entire superyacht, not maliciously, but just to prove it could be done. Then things get weird. In 2017, more than 20 ships in the Black Sea suddenly report their position as being miles inland at an airport. And by 2019, the threat is literally on our roads, with experts showing they could fool an electric car on autopilot into taking a completely wrong exit. This isn't theoretical. It's a real and growing problem. So to really understand how to fight this, you first have to understand the attacker's playbook. You see, there are two main ways to mess with the GPS signal: jamming and spoofing. They might sound kind of similar, but trust me, in terms of sophistication, they are worlds apart. It's the difference between a sledgehammer and a scalpel. Okay, so jamming is just pure brute force. It's the sledgehammer. It blasts so much radio noise that your GPS receiver literally can't hear the real satellites anymore. Your screen goes blank. It's annoying, but at least you know you're being jammed. Spoofing, though, that's the scalpel. It doesn't block the signal. It replaces it with a new, perfectly crafted fake one. Your GPS looks like it's working just fine, but it's lying to you. And that's what makes it so incredibly dangerous and hard to spot. Let me put it another way. Jamming is like someone just shouting over a conversation you're trying to have. It's obvious and disruptive. But spoofing? Spoofing is like someone flawlessly mimicking your friend's voice on the phone to give you dangerously bad directions. One is just noise. The other is a subtle, terrifying deception. All right, so let's dive a little deeper and open up the spoofer's toolkit. Because not all spoofing attacks are created equal. They actually range from pretty simple to, frankly, mind-bogglingly complex. At the most basic level, you have what's called a replay attack. You can think of this as a simple copy and paste job. An attacker literally just records the real GPS signals and then plays them back a few moments later. That little delay is all it takes to mess up the receiver's calculations and make it think it's somewhere or somewhen it isn't. Now we take a huge leap up in sophistication. This is the forgery attack. Here, the spoofer isn't just replaying old data. No. They are creating brand new, completely fake satellite signals right from scratch. This gives them total control to guide their target wherever they want them to go. Okay, so what about the really secure, encrypted military signals? That's where the estimation attack comes into play. You can think of this as the long con. The spoofer has to patiently listen to the real signals, analyze them, and basically reverse engineer the secret security codes before they can even start to build their fake signal. This takes a ton of skill and serious computing power. And finally, we get to the absolute peak of deception, the nulling attack. This is both genius and, honestly, pretty terrifying. The spoofer sends out two signals at once. The first is the fake one to trick you. The second is an exact copy of the real satellite signal. But it's perfectly out of phase. It acts like a pair of noise-canceling headphones for GPS, completely erasing the real signal from the sky. All that's left is the forgery, and the receiver has no idea the real signal was ever there. So, here's a little cheat sheet that pulls it all together. You can see the pattern, right? As we go down the list, the difficulty in pulling off the attack skyrockets.
But as the difficulty goes up, so does the effectiveness of the attack. The most advanced techniques are so good they're almost impossible to catch without some really specialized defenses. Okay, that's a lot, and it's pretty scary stuff. So the big question is, how do we fight back? How do you spot a lie that is designed to be a perfect copy of the truth? Well, this brings us to the fascinating art of anti-spoofing. The key concept behind almost all defenses is this: no forgery is perfect. A real signal coming from a satellite has certain physical characteristics. You can think of it like a fingerprint that are incredibly difficult for a spoofer on the ground to fake. And one of the most reliable fingerprints we can check for is something called the Doppler shift. You already know the Doppler effect, even if you don't recognize the name. It's that neew-yom sound an ambulance makes as it speeds past you. The pitch changes because of its motion. Well, the exact same thing happens with satellite signals. These satellites are screaming across the sky at over 17,000 miles per hour. And that incredible speed gives their signal a very specific, constantly changing Doppler shift. So here's how the good guys use that to spot a fake. Your GPS receiver is listening to a whole orchestra of satellites at once, all moving in different directions at insane speeds. Each one has its own unique Doppler fingerprint. A spoofer, on the other hand, is usually just one transmitter on the ground. It simply cannot fake all those different rapidly changing fingerprints at the same time. A smart receiver sees this. It sees that all the signals have the same, weirdly static fingerprint, and it immediately says, wait a minute, this is physically impossible. This has to be a fake. And the Doppler shift isn't our only defense. Defenders use things like antenna arrays. I mean, if all of your satellite signals are coming from the exact same direction on the ground, that's a huge red flag. They also run consistency checks on things like signal power and phase. And the ultimate defense is what's called signal authentication, basically adding a cryptographic digital signature to the real signal that's almost impossible to forge. But here's why all this matters so much. This isn't just about a single drone or a fancy yacht. The threat here goes way beyond these isolated incidents. We are talking about protecting the invisible infrastructure that, honestly, our entire modern world runs on. And this is where the stakes become incredibly high for all of us. It's not just about your car's navigation. The entire global financial system uses GPS time to stamp every single transaction. Our power grids use it to stay synchronized. Our cell phone networks depend on it. And of course, there's transportation, airplanes, cargo ships, and yeah, the self-driving cars of the very near future. All of it is vulnerable. Remember that incident with the ships in the Black Sea? That was more than 20 ships all having their navigation hijacked at the exact same time. Now just imagine if that happened to a fleet of self-driving trucks on a highway, or a city's power grid. The consequences are just staggering to think about. So what this all adds up to is a constant invisible arms race. Every single time the defenders build a better, smarter lock, the attackers get to work on a more sophisticated lockpick. It is a relentless cat and mouse game fought in the invisible radio spectrum all around us. And that leaves us with a critical and kind of unsettling question for the future. As we hand over more and more control of our cars, our infrastructure, even our defenses, to autonomous systems that depend on GPS, how do we make sure they're operating in the real world? How do you win a war against an enemy who can literally control your perception of reality itself?